Hi, welcome. Welcome to 7 weeks and 7 facets of flow, your gateway to miracles. This is episode 5, surrender. Now, at the time of recording this, we are on a replay, if you like, or a rearranged session, which is quite appropriate for an episode on surrender. At the time of recording all 8 episodes of Your Gateway to Miracles, we were in the months of January and February and then March of 2017. And it hasn't escaped me, as it won't escape you who've been listening to this live, that we are in our 5th episode of Surrender at a time when we've just entered a very important new moon phase. In fact, it was yesterday, the 26th of February, Piscean new moon, and the Pisces is the sign of surrender, amongst other things. So slightly gives me goosebumps because the flow of the universe, of which we know nothing except how we experience our life via it flowing through us, is showing us evidence of being in charge, is showing us evidence of flow incidents, as I call it. And I do have a lot of fun with language around flow, but coincidence has become flow incidents for me. And this one is pretty powerful. So I think it probably is good to start with now. It's always a good place to start. As you know, if you've listened to any of these previous episodes, I don't have any notes. I speak from the heart and I talk around a topic that is one of the facets of flow that is very much a part of my coaching and healing sessions and my group and one-to-one work. And surrender is a fundamental part. Each of the 7 facets of flow are fundamental. Surrender is probably a deep one. When we think of surrender, we think of depth. But the fact that it has fallen in this natural, universal place with our moon cycle speaks loudly to me that we are all in the right place, you here listening to me and me here speaking to you. So it looks like at the moment, and this is interesting, I want to share this with you because what's going on for us now is part of flow. So I cannot speak about flow without being in the moment and speaking to you of now. But it's interesting to me that I'm speaking to you on this recording. No one is listening to me live, and this is the first time. Now, practically speaking, it's because it's a Monday at 1 o'clock, and normally we do these on Saturday at 7 p.m. But the universe turned in different ways for me and I couldn't do it then. I had 2 sick children. I had a feeling during the day it wouldn't happen. And of course, the message was clear to me, and I'm lucky to have seen that, to have had this episode called Surrender already booked in. I surrendered to the moment, surrendered to what was happening, and allowed it to not be. So I simply jumped onto Zoom, spoke to the people who had lovingly turned up and apologised and said, we're going to rearrange. So here we are at times of recording this at a different time to that which we'd planned. And anyone who's getting the kind of the hang of the flow thing will know that we don't plan so much. We have a structure, we have an idea, and then if it falls into place, that's fantastic. If it doesn't, we know that something else will fall into place. And I feel like quoting Robbie Williams here, one of my favourite singers and people actually, for his authenticity and his kookiness, I guess. But he said, I spoke to God about my plans. I spoke to God and he laughed at my plans. I spoke to God and he laughed at my plans. So I like to remember that at times like this. So thank you for being with me on this recording. And it's a different experience for me. I've already had one false start recording this, which intrigues me that my mind has got in the way, and I allowed myself, I was only a minute in, I allowed myself to stop recording and start again because I knew no one was listening. Whereas the 4 previous episodes, the unknown, being unclear, acceptance and trust, I'd simply focused in, dropped into the moment and been there. Whereas I think I've allowed my mind to wander. So this is where we're at now. We're in this moment, the day after the new moon in Pisces, on the 26th of February at 3 o'clock, the new moon moved into Pisces. And we're now on Monday, the 27th of February, 2017 at time of recording. It was a solar eclipse also yesterday. So the motion of the planets, the sun, and where we are in our universe is extending a force upon us. And I will explain a lot about this in episode 8 on March the 18th. That's the bonus episode. That nature's our mirror, that we are nature, nature is us. And talking about the moon and the moon cycles and the other planetary cycles is a key part of it. It's become a woo-woo thing in our current society because we've separated ourselves off so much from the world that is us, the natural world. And I'll talk about that in next week's episode, actually, on connection. But it's really important, and we don't have to know exactly what it means, but just understanding that we're part of this and that it is going to have an effect upon our physical bodies, if not our spiritual beings, but our physical bodies, because we are of the same energy as the moon, for example. It's comforting. It reminds us that flow is moving all the time for all celestial bodies, including our own. So where are we at here now? In this space, and if you're listening to this recording, you'll be in this moon cycle at some point too. Maybe have a little look, see where the new moon's coming up for you, where the full moon was. If you have your birth chart done, have a look at where the planets are for you. Just have a feel into when it is that you've chosen to listen to this recording. Because when we drop into true trust and understand that flow is moving for us all the time, there are only flow incidences. There are no accidents. You're watching this at this time for a reason. And don't search for that reason either. My little bit of advice for you, just be in the space of knowing you're here right now and it's where you're meant to be. But it's fun to look at where nature is right now for us, what season we're in, where the moon is, where the planets are, just to play with, that connection and be in the space of conscious connection, because we're all connected. We're all in this space always. We can't move out of it. That would be to not be human, to not be alive, to not be part of this energy. But we subconsciously separate. So have some fun with that. So surrendering to the fact that I had to cancel the first opportunity for recording this live with some of my flow friends listening in, and being here now speaking to myself on a screen, it doesn't feel as good, I will admit, but it's where we're at, and I'm surrendering to that. And I'm going to share with you now, surrender to the moment, that I picked a card for myself from my goddess pack before starting this, actually, and put it up there for someone to speak to. And I chose Guinevere, True Love. It fell out of the card deck as I was shuffling. So I'm speaking to Guinevere, and it's lovely because it means that I'm speaking in the energy of true love. And really, that's always the space that I would choose to speak to you in. Okay, so an obvious link to this is this notion of surrendering ourselves. And there's so many different ways of interpreting the word surrender in terms of a language, but also in delving into what surrender really is. And I'm going to be doing a bit of both, a bit of mix and matching, and I'll hopefully make myself clear as to where I'm coming from. But it seems perfect to me that when I mentioned the fact that I'm talking to myself right now rather than to other people, that one of the key, or the hub, if you like, the nucleus of surrender is surrendering ourself. And so talking to the physical image of myself on this Zoom video isn't giving me the optimum opportunity for surrendering myself up, surrendering myself away, because I'm very aware of myself, because that's all I can see right now. So I think that's probably why flow led me to pick a card, so I could have Guinevere energy with me, have something else to look at, have someone else to look at, to take me out of myself. And it's become really evident to me, and in the work that I'm doing, and the work that I do is not just with my clients, it's in my life, it's with my friends, it's certainly with my family right now, and I will share some of that with you, because I am you, you are me, there is no separation. So I'm not in the business of being secretive or hiding things about me that I think are relevant. I won't tell you everything that's not relevant, because that's not helpful or a good use of your time. However, so surrendering ourselves, our identity hangs on who we feel we are, who we think we are, who we experience ourselves to be in this physical life, in this physical world. But we have probably all come across the notion that that's not really who we are, but it's it's through that medium that we experience life. So it's valuable, our physical body, as much as our physical earth. And there's no separation between our earth and our bodies, and looking after our bodies is looking after the earth, and vice versa. Hence, I do teach a lot about environmentalism, or I'm learning a lot about it, I should say, because I'm always the student, always the student. So what does this notion of surrendering self mean? What am I talking about? It's surrendering yourself to the oneness. It's surrendering yourself to the connected whole. Offering yourself up to the collective. Surrendering yourself to flow. And the most obvious way of us doing that in our physical form is to be in the conscious connection to the natural world. Understanding that it's not about us individually, it's about us as a collective. It's flow world, it's not flow me. So it's not about me, it's about we. And I think as a little watchword or a little catchphrase, that's a pretty good one. So let's give an example of what I mean by that. And our natural world, the world outside our window, as I often refer to it, is a great role model. So for example, let's imagine a whole field of poppies or sunflowers or whatever flower comes to mind for you. You can first of all recognize the fact that they're not in thought of competition with each other like we might be. And I explore this a great deal in my group program, FlowBiz. This idea of competition and why it doesn't serve us, isn't helpful, and doesn't work in practical terms. So if you're a flower in a field of flowers, are you thinking thoughts of competition? No, you're not. You don't have the power of thought that we have to create our experience. All they do is follow their instinct to reach for the sun. Now, within that field, there will be some flowers that might grow slightly more quickly. Who knows? Flow knows why that is. It's the nature of nature to trust that whatever's going on, all is well, because we're part of the collective, that one energy that can't be destroyed. So there will be one flower maybe that's, or several flowers, the tall poppy syndrome, let's use a field of poppies as an example, that will block out the light for another flower or several other flowers, and that flower might wither and die. So I know that analogy has been used by a lot of people to say, well, there is competition in nature. You know, we are just aping nature by being competitive. It's natural. Well, you see, I don't really see it that way anymore, because that flower, A, doesn't have the power of thought, isn't deliberately competing, and B, that flower is going into the earth, changing its energy, and will nourish another flower to come up. So they're all working in collaboration, not competition. Birth, death, life, death, the cycles means nothing. Because we're all in this together. Those poppies are all in it together. So they surrender, metaphorically speaking, they surrender themselves to the collective, to nature, to life. And I know that there are examples of amazingly courageous human beings who surrender their lives for others. You know, maybe this is part of that instinct that comes out. And of course, it's easier to do that for those people who are in our experience, or people that we love in our lives, or our families or our friends, because we have that ability to consciously connect to them more easily. It's much harder to consciously connect to someone we don't know. You know, we know that connection's there, but we're not consciously connected to them, whereas we do consciously connect ourselves to our children and our parents and our family and our friends. So you know, that plays out in our human life. You know, instinct takes over from thought. Wisdom takes over from intellect. And we step in to sacrifice ourselves, to surrender ourselves up to something bigger, often to the life of a person who's younger than us. We see them as perpetuating the cycle further on. So we bow out and move around. So that really for me is the nub, the essence, the nucleus of this concept, this word. Again, it's a word. We're in the position of language here. It's surrendering yourself. And in a very microcosmic way, that's, I suppose, the idea I have when I'm presenting each episode in the 7 Facets of Flow. Surrender myself. The word ego is often used. But surrender the self, my physical self, what I want to happen or I believe should happen, or how I might have thoughts of what's going to come across here and how you're going to listen to it. Surrender that up to the collective. And I've mentioned before that what you hear is probably nothing to do with the words I speak. What you hear is about you. You brought yourself here to listen to this, and you will hear what is right for you. And we're all in this together. So it's a symbiotic relationship, again, to use a word in nature or in science. So with that in mind, I think normally if I was going to start with some kind of connecting, grounding space or meditation, I would do it at the beginning, but it feels good to do it here. And I think it's about inviting you now not to do listening, but just to be here. So just be you, be here in the presence of me and all the other people who will be listening to this recording at different times. But it's all one. Even time, apparently, is all one. That blows my mind. So let's just be in the energy of everything, everyone, and be here, be present in the space of the words I might be speaking, but more so in the feeling and the energy between them that is yours, not mine. And not do listening. Let's forget doing listening. Let's just be. So with that in mind, I invite you to just close your eyes very gently. Take a breath in, let it go. And just do that as many times as you feel drawn to do. And plant your feet firmly on the solid surface beneath you, whether that's the floor, the bed, the sofa, the chair. Soles down. So the soles are flat to Mother Earth, even if they're higher up than Mother Earth, in whichever building you're in. Now, there's no set way of doing any of this, ever. I close my eyes. I like to breathe. I invite you to follow what I'm doing so that we're all doing it together, because that enhances our conscious connection. But really, whatever being here means for you, you do that. Have your eyes open, walk around the room, whatever it is. It's fun to sometimes do the same as everyone else and feel what it feels for you and what it might be feeling for someone else. So breathing and just dropping those shoulders with each out breath. Maybe, as I feel I'm doing now, just raising your torso gently with every in-breath. And that raising up is likely to be from your lower back area. I'm also pressing my palms together, I realize, but if that feels good to you, that's fantastic. Otherwise, placing your hands wherever they're comfortable, wherever they feel relaxed. So surrendering to this moment, surrendering your sense of self, your concept of me, to the collective, to community, to collaboration. They're all C's. To connection, of course, cooperative. Just taking your attention to the soles of your feet again and feeling the solidity of the floor, ground, earth, bed, sofa, chair beneath you. Feeling that solidity of whatever it is under your feet. And knowing that that supports you. And knowing that further down underneath your feet is Mother Earth, who is always here to support us. Always there, holding us up, providing for us, allowing us our lives, allowing us our experience, our physical experience on this earth. How lucky are we? And taking your attention even further down now into Mother Earth, like you're burrowing down through the soil, through the rich, dark, as the soil gets darker, moving down, denser minerals, crystals, the water, burrowing deeper and deeper. And of course, it gets hotter and hotter as you get towards the center of the earth. And just imagine yourself burrowing so deep down into that supportive earth that you reach the center, that red hot, fiery center. Making a note of who is ringing me, because that's an interesting point to hear from somebody. Notice everything, guys. You know, you don't have to focus in on what anything means, but just notice things. It's fun. And it can guide you. But be playful with it. So we're in that red hot, fiery center of the earth. And let's just hook into it gently, whether it's like a fishing hook, or lassoing a rope around it, or hugging it like you'd hug a tree or a person. And just bring that warmth into your physical being. Bring it in. Feel it as you're connected, having burrowed all the way down there to feel it. And bring it back up through the earth, through that rich soil, minerals, crystals, all the way up, rocks, water. The life-giving properties of Mother Earth are just infinite. Breathe it in through your feet. Breathe it up into your body. Feel the heat, feel the warmth, feel the energy, feel the groundedness, feel the safety, the support. Just feel it. Bring it up through your legs. I feel excited and tearful at the same time right now. I wonder how you're feeling. And hold it in your belly. Breathe. Just hold it gently in your belly. Just gently resting there. Great balls of fire resting in your belly. And hold it there. Feel it. And that heat is emanating out to the rest of your body, up to your chest, neck, head, ears, eyes, nose, mouth, shoulders, arms, hands, legs, of course. Every part of you is nourished by that red, orangey, yellowy, lower chakra glow, the heat of Mother Earth. And we thank you. We're grateful. We accept this gift together. Transcending time. Joining with everyone else who's ever listened to this at this moment. And I join with you with all my heart, with all my Guinevere true love heart. So with your attention around that ball, move it up. Move up your attention from that red fiery ball up your body, into your neck, up through your head and out through your crown now. Like a white shaft of light or a silvery rod of energy, reaching up out of the building you're in, or if you're outside, up into the sky already. Free and reaching up, and just allow your body to feel that upward motion. Feel the breath filling your lungs, connecting up to the sky. Father Sky, I like that because it's Mother Earth. Father Sky, supporting us from top and bottom and around us. And we're a conduit now. We've imagined ourselves. We've consciously connected ourselves to each other, to the natural world. So just breathe in that knowledge right now, that consciousness. Breathe it in, and actually if you can hear any bells in the background, Tibetan bowls, it's because I've got the crown chakra activation, vibration on in the background, if you can hear it. So that's where we are now, with our fiery bellies and our feet planted on the earth. Beautiful conduits for all the energy that's around us and between us that we share. Okay. So I was going to say bring yourself back, but maybe not. Maybe stay in that space, be with it. And I'll be with it as I'm with you. And I want to speak now to this notion of surrender as a form of flow, as a facet of flow, as a conscious way of accessing where flow is for us right now, because it's always there, but for our conscious connection to it, knowing where it's at. So really the surrender is the opposite of the fight, which is how we use it colloquially, isn't it? The white flag of surrender. But when we surrender ourselves, and when we surrender to our moment and to flow, we give up any fight. We give up any fight. And what is fighting doing for us? It's keeping us in a fear space. Fighting is a contracted action. It's keeping the body in one place rather than breathing in and out. Contraction and expansion are part of the natural rhythm of life. Maybe it's worth mentioning here. There's a lot of, pressurized talk, if I might say, in the self-development world about being expanded. Let's expand ourselves, which I love, feeling the breath in and expanded. But I can't hold my breath. Well, I could, but then I would lose my experience of life. If I hold my breath to remain expanded, what happens? So we let it out and we contract again. So contracting is part of the natural flow of life. And being a contracted space, we negatively connect with that, don't we? But it's an innate part of the breathing in and out of life. It's only when we stay tight shut and we're not breathing in. And I think that's a physical attribute many of us fall into accidentally when we subconsciously separate, because it is subconscious. We forget to be in the breathing. We forget to breathe. So simple, but of course, that's exactly why we so often miss all of this flow stuff, is because it's so simple. We expect life to be complicated, and it isn't. Flow is letting go. That's the message through every facet, is letting go. So fighting keeps us in a contracted space. It doesn't allow us to breathe in. A phrase that I often trot out, which wasn't mine, is fear is excitement without the breath. So if you're feeling in fear, in contraction, to expand again, breathe in and let in the other equivalent adrenaline response in our physical bodies, which is excitement, or the possibility of it, and see where you get to, see what happens. So surrender versus fighting is like flow versus control. So we fight to make things happen the way we think they should be, to control according to some rule that someone else might have set for us, that we didn't even realize it was someone else's rule. We've taken it on as our own. And this is where it's worth talking about the power of thought again. We have the power of thought because without this, we wouldn't have an experience of life. So we're blessed. We have a gift. It is a gift. But we use it against us to think that we're not connected, that we're not part of this flow of life. And it's someone else's thinking that creates their beliefs, as well as our thinking that creates our beliefs. And just because we've taken on someone else's belief as our own, it doesn't mean it's not our belief or our thought or our continued thought over time. So we own it and we're responsible for it. It doesn't matter tracking it down. This is why I'm not a fan of psychotherapy and going back into the past, because it came from somewhere, yes. But knowing that it came from thinking of our own is the only real truth that we'll know. We might not be able to delve into our past or our background, even our past lives, although it's fun. It's fun to do that if we're in a space of allowing our bodies to expand and contract, feel the fear, feel the excitement, flow through life, be in balance, go through the cycles. But if we're holding our bodies tightly, consistently, if we're not breathing in, and then we go down the track of finding what's happened in our past and what's happened in our past lives to find the answers to today, we're fighting. We're not surrendering to now, because the thinking that we're having right now may have been habitual, maybe from the past, but it's what we're having right now. So let's deal with where we are right now. Let's deal with the feeling that's coming up from our thought right now. Surrender to your moment to see what's going on for you. And this thought-feeling connection is so important, because we only really know what we're thinking via our feelings. Our feelings are our barometer of our experience, if you like, the barometer of our thinking. That's where our awareness is. That's our consciousness. So that's a gift to know that we can understand that our feeling comes from our thinking, and that our thinking is changing. We have 60,000 thoughts a day. 60,000. That's the average. If you read different research reports, it varies from 20,000 to 120,000. So let's just deal with where we're feeling right now. So I'll give you an example because it's very present. Today I have been feeling really angry. Monday, a delayed recording of this surrender session. Woken up feeling, I didn't wake up feeling like this actually, but just very out of kilter, just being with where I'm feeling right now. It's just being with my anger and allowing people to be in it without taking it out on them, but explaining to them where I'm at, without looking at what the source was. So surrendering to where I'm at without thinking I have to be anything other than where I'm at right now. I'm the flow coach. It doesn't mean that I have a perfect life. And this is so, so fundamental to what I offer up to people in my work now is as different, I believe, that I'm not offering you the panacea to life here. I'm not going to say, if this is what you want, I'll get you there. Because what you want right now might change tomorrow. What you want right now might never have been good for you. What you want right now might not be for you. Flow will decide that for you. So what I do offer though is an effortlessness which is inherent in surrender. That very word surrender might have taken on some negative connotations of failure and weakness. Au contraire, surrender is about letting go of yourself, surrendering to the moment, being with where you're at right now, taking yourself out of the equation so you have the space to allow in the collective, the wholeness, the oneness that is flow, the flow of life. So, it's very much connected to separation. All the facets of flow are connected. That you can't really talk about one without mentioning at least one of the others. And just to recap, the facets are the unknown, being unclear, acceptance, trust, surrender, connection or conscious connection, and love. So, there's no separating out. And surrendering to the oneness, surrendering to being connected to every person and everything, we can bring that analogy usefully, I believe, into our own lives, and where we're not surrendering to where we're at right now in our lives when we're in our work, because we've separated out the work and the life, if you like. It makes no sense. In a way, I can't even express it in words anymore. I used to be able to, because I very much left my self at home, or my essence, or my true essence at home, when I went to work as a headhunter in the city in investment banking for 7 years. I was told to leave my personal life at home. So, and I took that, made it into my own thought, and believed that I had to be this different person in work, and that I was depressed for many years because I didn't allow it. I didn't allow myself to be who I was in whichever moment it was, with my family, at work, on holiday, looking at my finances, looking at my health, being with myself. But it's all oneness. And if we can surrender to the oneness of our own lives, it's like a first step to surrendering to the oneness, surrendering to the whole. So reminding ourselves, it's not about me, it's about we. And again, maybe we can start with ourselves, inviting every part of our life in. So this is symbolic. It's not real. We don't have to do this, but inviting every part of our life in to be one. I used to work with the wheel of life in life coaching, and whilst I respect everyone's way of doing things in the world, it doesn't make any sense to me anymore. I separated out finances, health, career, love life, contribution, hobbies, whatever. So, and I'd set goals for each one. But then how can you separate yourself out like that? But that's what we do. And so that is what keeps us all in subconscious separation as a community, as a world, as a global community. So starting with the oneness of who we are, and then perhaps symbolically another step forward is to bring that into our family. There's even separation, and I'm just, this is sort of in playfulness really, in our houses and our streets. We put everyone in a separate bedroom, in a separate box at night, in our separate boxes as a family down the street, And I know there's a practicality to it perhaps, but it's also convention, isn't it? We could all live in a big building. I mean, I know there are what they call communes, but it's put down as a hippie concept. But that collective connection is our innate selves, our innate being, our innate nature. So I find it interesting that we further separate ourselves. We're playing at the moment with having sleeping in whatever room kids fall asleep in. It's always upstairs, which is interesting. I'd not thought of that. So we separate upstairs and downstairs. Maybe that doesn't need to be separated either. So we surrender to what's going on for us in any moment. I might share a bed with my 13-month-old baby, or my 2-year-old, or with Damien if we're lucky. So it really is about surrendering to each moment and taking ourselves out of the equation, surrendering ourselves up to the collective. And our mini collectives can be our family and our homes, can't it? So today, really very feeling off. And the new moon being yesterday at 3:00 was a powerful new launch of a beginning of a phase. We've got 6 months eclipse cycle now till August. We started on February the 11th with a lunar eclipse. And the light between two shadows, between 11th of February and the 26th of February, we're in 2017 now, we're listening to this recording, was a light on shadow. And the invitation being that understanding that could allow us to be with the uncomfortable feelings, be with whatever was showing up for us, because we don't create our thoughts are coming to us. Flow brings us our thoughts, and we understand what they are to a degree via our feelings. So being with the feelings, But it's when we try and push those away because we're fearful of our responsibility. Why is this happening? What can I do? Shut it out, shut it out, shut it out. So we further separate ourselves from our feelings, or we try to. But understanding that nature has its course to run and that we're part of it, and we can look at it with less fear, without knowing. And facet 1 of flow is the unknown, and facet 2 being unclear. Let's just look at it and just be with it and love ourselves in spite of the anger I was feeling this morning. And you see, what a gift for me. And I'll be honest now, this isn't about me, it's about us, it's about we. But we're all mirrors, we're all part of this, we're all in this together. I came up here to speak for an hour-ish about surrender. And oh boy, do I feel better now, because I have surrendered up myself. I've surrendered to the moment. And although I was moving about my day, I had some friends over, we've got the kids here, making breakfast. I had the anger. I was having in the anger about a particular family member. Because I was making it about me, because I hadn't surrendered myself up. And you know what? It's really important. Actually, it's really important that this came up right now, because my partner's writing a book called The World Peace Equation. He's spoken at Alternatives, actually, in St. James's about world peace. And his take on the journey from where we are now to world peace is that we can, if we understand collectively that it's okay to be where we're at, and if we can stop distancing ourselves from where we are now because we want to be somewhere else, or we're thinking about the past. This is very loose. And if you're curious, look him up, Damien Mark Smith. Then we could dissolve this fighting, this element of fight. We'd surrender to each other, to ourselves, to where we're at. And so in a way, Damien and my message are very similar. Because what I've realized by telling you that very mundane story of me not feeling great today and feeling angry is that I actually feel in a very different space now, because I've been given the opportunity. Flo gave me this opportunity to talk about surrender. So of course I'm surrendering, and I feel very differently about the family member that I was angry about this morning. And isn't that true for all of us? When we act from that place of anger, from that place of fear, when the planets are off, this is why it's so great to know what's going on in the heavens. Because and this is how people used to harvest and sow and harvest their crops, by the moon, by the planets. They'd look at when the best time for harvest was. Because they'd seen a correlation. So they were like, great, well, let's use it. They didn't question it. It just was. And with industrialization, etc., we've separated ourselves again from that wisdom, that knowledge that we had. So making decisions from that place of ill feeling, when our consciousness has come down, because we've forgotten that our feelings are our barometer, and that our feelings came from our thinking, which changes in the moment, and flow will move around again. So take a breath in and wait. How many of us have responded to an email? I did it yesterday. That we probably could have done better waiting. Now, I'm quite lucky because I kind of knew where I was at, and I knew that I was taking a risk. So it was tempered slightly by that. I wasn't totally in my crazy thinking, but I was partly, and it would have been better to leave it. But, I trust that all will be well. I'll surrender up to the next moment and the next moment, even if I didn't surrender myself completely. Because the reason I replied to that email that pushed my buttons was because I had made it about myself. So I hadn't taken myself out of the equation. So I talk in my blog, which needs updating because, of course, we move and we evolve and we grow. And I last wrote it in November when I was doing my 7 days, 7 facets of flow. But I talk about surrender also being possibly a version of extreme trust, like extreme sports, So, we trust ourselves, we trust our bodies. And I spoke in the last episode about how far we seem to have moved away from trusting our own natural immunity, our natural well-being, trusting our bodies, trusting each other, to this sort of collective feeling of distrust. But this concept that surrender as a notion or as a feeling or as a guided moment comes when we have lost all faith, lost everything. It certainly came to me in 2012 when business, money, everything just went, and I had to surrender. So this extreme trust, it's like you trust that where you're at and you drop into surrender. So it's deeper than trust. This is conceptual. This is about the words. This is the feeling that I get from the word surrender. And it really helps because we use words to express our feelings to ourselves as well as we do to other people. And I remember shouting on the top of the hill, the tour in Glastonbury in 2012. It was the 12th of the 12th, 2012. I surrender. Because I just didn't know. I had no clue what was going to go on, what was going next. It sort of, I felt, it was an excitement and a fear at the same time. And that surrendering up just kind of took myself out of the equation again and kind of brought in actually the next sort of phase. And I got pregnant actually 6 months later, which gives me goosebumps because I was 40, didn't know. I kind of sort of, I had let go of the desire to definitely have children. I knew that I kind of wanted to have kids, but I thought maybe it's not for me. But I surrendered to whatever was going to come up for me. And then 6 months later, I got pregnant with my first child. So, surrender has its place. And this is the irony though. This is the kind of, this is the rub. There's the rub, as Shakespeare would say. I don't believe you can deliberately surrender to get what you want, because then you're not surrendering. You surrender up your desire, you let go of it. It has to be ultimate, complete, and feeling based and real and authentic and genuine. But you see, what we explore with the 7 facets of flow is the reason why we can trust, the reason why we can surrender. And you're probably getting the reason. I'm hoping that you're getting the reason from these episodes. That reason is because flow is in charge, not us. And we have the evidence outside our window of flow in action. If we don't see it in ourselves, it's a shame, but it's natural with this subconscious separation that seems to be an epidemic in our society. Just look outside the window, the seasons, the day and night. There are so many different cycles, the 24 hours, 28 days, the year. I think Jupiter is 27 years, Saturn 12 years in its rotation. So there are so many different cycles within cycles going on, and we are just one of them. Our life cycle is just one of them. So it's beautiful. It's mysterious. So surrender to it. And if you're in a moment in your life where you're like, whoa, trust is just a little bit too much of a minor word for it. I'm just pussyfooting around with trusting. I'm going to go into deep surrender. That language works for you. If that feeling works for you, that's it. That's what's for you. But we can't force it. And this irony that I just spoke about is that, until you've let go of it completely, whatever it is, and said, whatever's for me is for me, you could well be blocking your good coming in, or what's for you to come in, whether it's that thing you thought you wanted or not. Now, the mystery for me is, and I'm still exploring this, and I'm fascinated by this really in a playful way, is that it does seem that when you let it go, when you really do, to the point where you don't need or want it anymore, that's what I mean. That's what I mean here, which is why the law of attraction and this visualization and focus on what you want. That's why so many people get so cross about it, because you're focusing, you're holding on to this thing. It's like, I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. If you're light around it and excited and you launch your big idea, which is what I do now in my flow coaching work, we launch ideas, not intentions, not goals. That's where I was. That was the smaller space, the big ideas, and let it go and see what comes back around to you. Almost you forget what it is you've launched, and you don't go seeking for the memory of it either. You surrender it up and let what's coming around to you come in. And then sometimes when something comes in, you go, oh my God, that was what I put up there almost exactly, or oh, that is pretty much what I said I'd wanted. Wow, how did that happen? That's the miracle. This is the gateway to miracles, flow, or understanding flow, or seeing it and consciously connecting with flow, whatever the language is. It's our gateway, it's our conscious gateway to miracles. It's our intellectual gateway, if you like. We're seeing more and more how intellect points us in the wrong direction, and how wisdom and allowing flow can be in the right direction. But we are intellectual physical beings. We have thoughts for a reason to create our experience. So seeing this as a gateway, seeing understanding flow as a gateway is partly intellect. So I'm gonna wind up now, but just actually invite you listening to this to contact me. I don't care if it's 2017 or 2027 or whenever it is. Contact me. What's your juicy big idea? What's an idea that you have for your life? Now, it might be one that you've just kind of percolating with you. It might be one you've had for a long time. You might be feeling excited about it, or you might be feeling fearful about it. Share it with me with the idea of letting it go. I employ all sorts of fun rituals that don't mean anything except the meaning I put to them. Once I tied with my dream team group back in 2012, 11, anyway, our intentions as I worked with them to a sunflower, and we set it to float down the river. So the essence of my work now was there then. And you'll probably find, if you look back at your childhood even, and at what you really loved, and how that mirrors what you're doing now, or what you're not doing now, what might be more heartfelt for you. So we used to set daffodils, sunflowers down the river. We've all heard about burning things, burying things, whatever works. Write it down, send it in an email to me, and let it go. I'll take it. I'll consciously connect with it, because we're all in this together, and I will let it go too. And this is what we're experimenting with in Flow World with 7 people, 7 being the number of manifestation, my label, the creational number. Nothing in this physical world can exist without 7 parts. Top, bottom, left, right, back, front, and middle. You think about it, anything, or shape, however small the middle is, or big the top is, or whatever. There are 7 things. So to exist, to become form, there needs to be 7 parts. So that's why there's 7 people in our group, of which I'm one, of course, otherwise I'd be making 8. And we consciously connect with our ideas and let them go. Just to experiment with what happens when more and more people are consciously connected. So feel free to join this as a bit of an experiment, and email me, and I'll consciously connect with it and let it go. And if you are interested in ever joining Flow World, they're 3-month programs, and they happen every 3 months at the moment. And I'm open to it being more than 7 people if Flow decides, but so far it's been 7, which is very interesting in itself. It's not my control. I haven't capped it at that. It just happened to be like that. So I'll sign out with lots of love, surrendering myself to you and me, to we, to the whole, and to the natural world that is infinitely wiser than us, just doesn't have the power of thought to think it's not. Okay, lots of love. Bye-bye for now. See you soon.